This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
You know, my father always told me, if you want something, you got to go out and get it. Nothing's ever going to come free in life, and if you've got to work hard, you only get out what you put in.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Welcome back. I've got a really cool guest with me today. He is, once in a while you see like a market that is kind of taken over and really explodes with some innovation, some really cool products. And the Subaru market is one of those that I think our guest here today has really dominated in the past couple of years here, with especially with their engines they've been building. So I've got with me Jabaji from IAG Performance. IAG Performance is a pretty large operation. They've got a little bit of everything going on, and I'm sure he'll be happy to share with us what he's all got going for him. But JJ, how are you doing today?
Doing very well, thank you.
Awesome. So JJ, why don't you go ahead and give us some background of yourself? So how did you get involved in cars, and what kind of brought you into this industry? And take us back to when you were a kid.
Well, as a kid, I, like a lot of us in the industry, kind of was very interested in mechanical things, and would always take apart things, even toys and, bicycles and work on those kind of things as a child. And eventually when I started having to kind of fend for myself and try to earn a living, as a young child around 12, 13 years old, I was always working on the lawn equipment to kind of keep that maintained. And eventually when my friends that were always about a year or 2 years older than I was, started driving, I started being asked to kind of work on their cars I actually got into car audio initially, and started doing car alarms and car stereos, and worked out of a garage at my parents' house, and as a young high schooler. And eventually when I graduated high school, I actually went and opened a shop doing car audio and car alarms, and did that through college, kind of as I was attending college. And that's kind of how I got started. Was in the car audio scene, and that market started to change in the early 90s, and by about 95, 96, when the big box stores started coming around, like Circuit City and Best Buy, it was really tough to kind of make a living doing that. And my senior year of college, I decided that I needed to do something different, and linked up with a friend of mine that had a performance shop, and kind of chatting with him, decided that that's kind of what I wanted to do. So I went and started working with him, and that was about 96 or so. I originally worked out of my parents' garage at their home when I was in high school, and the summer between high school, after graduating high school and starting college, I actually went and leased an 1,800 square foot space, and with a buddy of mine, and he was doing some body work in the back of the shop, and I was actually doing the car stereo and alarm stuff in the front of the shop, and did that through college. I actually hired a couple of friends that would work during the day, and then when I was done with my classes at 4:30 in the afternoon, I'd run down from college. It was about a 45-minute drive, get to the shop, kind of work into the early evening until I knew I had to get back and kind of get schoolwork done, and did that basically through college and until my senior year.
So you've been at it really since you were like even before high school, then, working hard, huh?
Yeah. As far as the car stuff, I really started that probably in about maybe 1990, 91, and started getting into the car performance side of things even before I went to work professionally in the industry. Started kind of tinkering with my own cars probably in 94, 95.
And you're all self-taught all this stuff. Your parents didn't really have any influence on this?
No, if they had, in the early days, if they had any influence, they were trying to influence me to do something else. I think like a lot of parents, they want to see their kids be, doctors and lawyers and, engineers and that kind of stuff. And, I would say that in the early days, my parents didn't necessarily support what I was doing. That's very different these days. I think by the time I was in my last year of college, my father kind of realized school wasn't for me, and that he could either support what I was doing, or I was just not going to have a good relationship with my parents. And so it's very different these days. My father actually likes to kind of stop by every month or so and kind of see what's going on at the shop and see the new equipment and all the new things that we're working on.
Okay. And so you did go to college. Did you finish?
I didn't. It's actually kind of embarrassing, but I stuck it through all the way until my senior year, and trying to run a business and go to school was a terrible idea. It's probably one of the worst things I tried to do. But I had a passion for the cars, but I also wanted to kind of make my parents proud, and wanted to go to school, and I tried to do it. And I ended up going on academic probation my senior year, and just made a decision that it was going to be tough to finish, and it was all happening kind of at the same time. And I was given this opportunity by a friend of mine to go work with him, and he had a up and coming business doing European cars, and I made the jump. It might not have been the right decision at the time, and in retrospect, I wish I would have finished, but got all the way down to the end and just didn't finish.
What were you going to school for?
Business.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're kind of like, even from the age of 12, working on auto or like lawn equipment and engines, and working your way up to cars and car stereo. So obviously entrepreneurship and doing things on your own is kind of in your blood, huh?
Yeah, it really is. One of the things that I have to credit my parents to is they never really gave me anything. I never got an allowance. They always afforded me the opportunities to make money and to have a good life. Like using his lawn equipment and stuff like that. But my father always told me, if you want something, you got to go out and get it. Nothing's ever going to come free in life, and if you've got to work hard, you only get out what you put in. So as a young child, I was out hustling, doing whatever I had to do to put money in my pocket and buy that next BMX bike, or the next skateboard, or whatever it was that I kind of wanted, whatever materialistic things I wanted in life.
Okay, so you never really worked a job for anybody else other than your buddy's performance shop, then, it sounds, huh? You've just been on your own?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I worked for a catering company for a short period of time as a child. That sucked. Really just always had a passion for cars and mechanical things, and I've really been lucky that I've been able to, kind of support myself, doing what I love.
Okay. And you, with kind of starting your own company, you're taking all the risk on this. Was it out of necessity, or was it just a passion that kind of drove the doing your own thing?
Really out of necessity. I started the business in 2004, and my oldest daughter at the time was still in my wife's belly, and I started the business in February, and she was due to be born in October. So we had just kind of found out and knew that I had to kind of get more serious. While what we do every day is fun, and it's there is definitely, I have a passion for it. I also had to kind of start thinking about the future, and realizing that I had to buckle down and kind of create a nest egg for us.
All right, gotcha. So bring us up to IAG. How did you go from your car stereo shop to kind of helping your buddy out at his shop? Bring us up to what created IAG Performance.
Well, I worked for my buddy for from about 1996 until about 2004. Learned a lot about cars, and really a lot about business and kind of what not to do. He maybe wasn't the best businessman. He had a very creative mind and was really bright, and taught me a lot of things, but business definitely wasn't his thing. And I realized that the only way that I was ever going to really kind of be able to execute some of the ideas and the plans that I had was to kind of be on my own. I was a little bit burnt out of the industry, and I decided that I wanted to, because I always kind of had to figure out how to kind of make a living and put money, put food on the table, for a lack of a better way of explaining it. I used to kind of buy and sell cars on the side when I was working in the performance shop. And so I decided that I was going to go out and get a dealer's license and start selling cars. And that happened in early 2004. And by middle of 2004, that's what we were doing. We were actually buying cars at the auction and refurbing them and selling them. I'd hired a friend of mine that, that I'd not really connected with in a couple of years. And so we did that through 2004. And in 2005, this buddy of mine came to me and he said, you really ought to get into buying and selling Subarus. These things kind of sell themselves, and they're utilitarian and they fit the bill for a lot of people because they're four-door, but they're still fun to drive. And it's an easy sell for young adults that are still kind of trying to have fun, but also be responsible. And so that's what we did. We tried to buy and sell some Subarus, and started that in 2005 and did really well at it. And kind of our way of doing things was we would buy a car that, contrary to what most people would think, we'd buy a car that had a lot of performance work already done to it. We would actually put that car back completely stock, stock hardware and stock heat shields and, all 100% the right way with OEM parts. And we would sell the car. And, if we made a couple grand on the car, we were happy. And then we would sell off the parts. And, we would usually make a couple of grand on the parts. And that was really kind of our business model in 2005, 6, and 7.
And were you doing that out of your buddy's shop there, or was that on your own here then?
Yeah. So at this point, kind of a long backstory, but to give you kind of the shorter version of the backstory, my buddy's shop, the owners of the property had decided back in 2001 to sell the building, and he couldn't make it happen. He didn't have the credit. And fortunately enough, I did, and I was in the position to be able to make it happen. And so I had actually purchased the property back in 2001, and he was leasing back from me.
Oh, wow.
And when I decided to kind of part ways with him, I did stay in the building. And, we used to rent frontline space, and I had one lift in the shop. And so we were working in the same space, but kind of two separate businesses.
Okay.
And we did that until about middle of 2007. Unfortunately, my buddy's business kind of had a downturn, and he had somewhat of a self-destructive nature, and things didn't go very well. And eventually, I ended up having to actually evict him in about middle of 2007. Okay. And kind of had a decision to make. We had all this space, at least what at the time seemed like a lot of space, and I had just a car sales business, and wasn't really sure whether I could support all the space. And it kind of decided, well, are we going to continue to sell cars here? Am I going to sell this property, or am I going to kind of just step things up? And the answers, kind of those questions, were really kind of answered for me because we had been selling all these aftermarket parts to these guys we had sold cars to, and many of them had been asking about having parts installed, and so it kind of just made sense. You know what? I'll kind of take the risk. It was a little bit risky, but I was confident we would make things work. And at the time, the car sales business was doing really well. This is before, the 2008 election and kind of the downturn of the economy. And, we were selling about 3 to 4 cars a week. So it really was kind of not a difficult decision. I just knew that I was going to have to add staff, and, whenever you add staff, that kind of things get more complicated. But we kind of took that jump in late 2007, about October is when we decided to open our doors.
And it turns out to be one of the worst times to start a business rolling into 2008, huh? Or to expand the business, I should say.
Yeah, ironically, it was definitely not a good time. In fact, not to get too off topic, but in 2008 we went to SEMA and got back from SEMA, and just everything just died. It was like this 2 weeks between SEMA and Thanksgiving. I actually had kind of long conversations with my key guys here, and just talking through all these different ideas, because business had just tanked. The phone wasn't ringing. People weren't scheduling work. It was just a really strange time. And I kind of said to the guys, look, stick this through me, and I promise you that no matter what it takes, I'll see this through to the end. And we actually had, a kind of a rough winter, and I decided, I have to do whatever I have to do to make sure that my guys are taken care of, the bills are paid, and I don't get behind. And so I actually decided to sell Christmas trees on our front parking lot.
Interesting. Okay.
Went to an auction and bought 1,000 Christmas trees and set up this fence, and we sold Christmas trees for a winter. It's really interesting to kind of look back now and think kind of where we came from. It was definitely an interesting winter. And after that winter in the spring, after the trees were kind of all gone and we were trying to figure out how to kind of make things work again, I actually bought 14 U-Haul trucks, and we scrapped U-Haul trucks. They had kind of an aluminum frame floor in the back. And, we did that for about a month and a half just to keep people in work. I never wanted to send anybody home, and I never wanted to tell anybody that, their check wasn't good. And thank God we've been it's been busy since, after that kind of winter and that spring, business started taking off again, and I've never had to look back since.
So you're kind of the epitome of do whatever it takes to keep things going then.
Absolutely. I can promise anybody that, that works with me that they'll never have to worry about their paycheck. And even if I don't eat a week, I'll make sure that everybody's taken care of.
Awesome. That's awesome. So you have obviously expanded this out. You were saying you were selling 2 to 3 Subarus a week. Like, is that the only car you were selling at this dealership? Like, is that your goal, was to disassemble modified cars, put them back to stock, and then now you see the need for people to want to modify them again, just have them bring it right back and start modifying it again? Is that what you were looking to do?
Pretty much. I mean, it's like anything in life. It's kind of like a big puzzle, and if you can figure out how to put the pieces of the puzzle together, you can have a successful business. And for us, in the early days, it just happened to be that, buying these cars with work done to them, putting them back to stock and making money on both ends of it, was, kind of the recipe that worked. Obviously, like in any business, you have to be adaptive and kind of be in tune to the industry and what things are, what people are asking for, and kind of change the business. Early on, I didn't want to actually build engines. We didn't want to make any parts. I didn't want to tune cars. And, and that's changed quite a bit. We do all of that stuff now. And some of those things, I like to think considered the leader in our market, in our niche. To look back and think that I didn't want to build engines is just absurd. These days we ship out about 5 to 6 engines a day, and we're building about 7 a day, roughly.
That's pretty crazy. So some of them you're installing and the rest are shipping out?
Correct. Yes.
Wow, that's quite a few engines. So do you think location has played a role in your success?
Maybe in our early days it had, because this area is pretty saturated with Subarus. Nowadays, maybe a little bit, just because we are kind of central to a lot of other shops that are in our market, and our wholesale business has changed and grown quite a bit. So, we have a lot of wholesalers that pick up and drop off from us. And we're obviously a one-day shipping zone to a lot of the key players in our industry. So yeah, maybe a little bit.
Okay. Have you ever doubted yourself, and how do you overcome that feeling and move forward? Like, give us an example of some time. I mean, 2008 is probably a pretty good example, but is there any other examples?
Yeah, I mean that was probably the big one. I'd say the second big one was about 3 years ago. We had made a decision that I wanted to start making some parts. Actually, it was a little bit more than 3 years ago, probably about 5 years ago, and we bought. Originally a really old kind of outdated CNC machine, and we did some stuff. Our first product actually was our TGVs, which, it's kind of a complicated part to start with. I don't even know why we decided to start with that, but I do like challenges. And so we spent all this time re-engineering this factory part, changing it, making it better, and bought the CNC machine and started making them. And we spent about 2 years really struggling with that. I'm not a machinist. I didn't know the first thing about CNC machining or programming or any of that stuff. And I kind of just, had to just jump in with both feet and figure it out. And we spent about 2 years struggling with it. We kind of came to a crossroads about 2 years ago where we were spending more time working on our equipment than we were actually making parts. And I had never borrowed any money to date. We had done everything basically by just working hard. And as I would save money up, we would spend money where it was needed. Mm-hmm. About every 2 years, we would have a kind of a big, kind of moment of growth. We opened a body shop in 2010, and then 2 years later, we bought some CNC equipment. And then 2 years after that, we were at this kind of crossroads. And at this point, I kind of realized, even though I'd been a big proponent of just kind of doing things with your own money, I realized that the only way that we were going to be able to grow and really kind of be a leader in the industry was to take a little bit of risk and buy some equipment, lease some equipment rather, and just kind of see how it would go. And I got a lot of pushback, honestly, from my staff. I think the staff had kind of seen, that we had struggled, and that that department itself wasn't really doing that well, and they didn't understand why I wanted to take this risk in buying a couple $100,000 piece of equipment in a department that wasn't working well. And kind of like anything in this business, what happens is if something struggles, or we have an area where there's kind of a fire, for a lack of a better way of explaining it, mm-hmm. I kind of put my head down and I just bury myself into that department and spend whatever time is necessary to fix it. And once that department's kind of fixed and running well, I train the staff, put the staff in place, and kind of hand it off to them, and then move on to the next area that needs work. And that's what we did 2 years ago. And I kind of had to explain to my guys that, while I had this vision of where I wanted the business to go and what I wanted us to do, I also did have an exit plan. And I think that's really important. A lot of people kind of go into things, being a visionary and thinking about the good stuff. But the reality is that, there are going to be bad times, and you have to think about that as well. And you have to kind of keep that in mind and keep yourself in check. And so I kind of put my head down. We bought some equipment, and I started learning that end of the business. And since then, we've actually bought 4 additional CNC machines. We actually have 5 total now. And that department is really just killing it.
I think your story really echoes the last one we did, or one we did a couple episodes ago with Terry Fair, where he bought some CNC machines, and it's taken him, I think he's up to about a year and a half or so, really get ramped up and to make them an actual profitable, revenue source. So, I think your experience is not the only one like that. So it's a difficult learning curve, and it's an expensive one, I think, is a bigger problem.
It is, and it's tough to justify with your staff. I think that's the big thing, is that your staff sees that you're spending all this money, and maybe they don't understand it. But I think now, looking back, the guys are really happy that we made those decisions.
Did you hire like a professional machinist, or is it just you learning it on your own and then training the people to do what you figured out?
So interesting as it may be, I actually hired originally one engineer, and then eventually a second manufacturing engineer. And trying to think of a polite way to say this. I learned pretty quickly that working with engineers maybe wasn't the best thing for me.
Okay.
They were very quick to kind of explain to you how things were done in a textbook, and how things in theory should work this way and should work that way. And I was always the kind of person that would ask a lot of questions. When they were running the machine, I would ask, why is it that you bring this tool out twice? Why can't you just bring it out once? Or why is it that you're deep burring this part from this side instead of just rotating the piece around so that you can get to the other side, and just things like that. And I think I realized pretty quickly that, while there may be a place for an engineer somewhere, it may not be here. Mm-hmm. We since then have hired just a programmer, and he actually does most of the hardcore programming. And I spend most of my time during the day actually down at the machines, kind of looking at the programs that he's done and kind of questioning things, and again asking him how we can improve things. And we've been able to, on a number of parts and a number of programs, we've actually been able to cut those cycle times down by about 50%.
Wow.
Which is pretty significant. And that's really the only thing that's allowed us to be able to get the work done that we need to get done with the equipment that we have, in the space that we have it.
Yeah, well, cutting your production time in half is that's how you make money.
It is, and we, one of our products, our air oil separator, our original goal about a year and a half ago was for us to sell. If we were selling 75 or 100 a month, I was pretty happy. And it's been crazy. We're actually selling about 350 a month, and the only way to get 350 done a month is by improving your cycle time. I mean, we didn't have the space to put more equipment in, so we really had no choice but to kind of improve our processes.
And I've heard of that part a lot, and I don't deal with Subarus, but is that a CNC like billet part, or are you just machining certain parts from it?
There's actually about 9 components total, or 9 major components that make up that part, and all 9 of them are actually CNC machined. We actually machine all of those in-house. So, every month, we've got to make, about 4,000 parts or so.
Gotcha. And then it's assembled or welded or however you would do. Like there's a final step. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, we've got a couple of pieces to get some baffling welded, and then the rest of it comes upstairs to our production area and basically gets assembled. We've got 2 guys that do nothing but assemble AOSs all day.
Awesome. So, what's the worst experience you've had in business?
I would say dealing with multiple personalities. It's really tough. Running a business is challenging in and of itself when you kind of have to worry about yourself and making sure the bills are going to get paid and dealing with keeping customers happy. But dealing with staff is challenging. I probably need to work a little bit on my positive reinforcement when the guys are doing well, because I have a really good crew. But things in dealing with 25 or 30 different people is challenging at times, for sure.
Okay, so managing the people is really your the hard part for you.
It really is. Yeah.
So tell us something you're doing right now that has you fired up.
The billet block that we're just now releasing. We're working with Will Racing, and who also does the billet block for ETS for the GTRs, and we're pretty excited about that. We've had really good success with our closed deck block program. We actually have a car that made about just under 1,250 wheel horsepower on our closed deck. But we want to take things to the next level. 1250 is nice, but we want to see north of that. And I don't want to talk any smack, but we have some goals. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's a very well machined piece. It really should kind of change this industry quite a bit. The Subarus, while you can make some power, they also do require some. A little bit of maintenance at that power level, obviously north of about 1,000 wheel. We're taking the engines apart almost after every other race, basically, to just kind of make sure that everything is good. And we're hoping with a billet block that we won't have to kind of have that service interval. Okay. I'm pretty excited about it.
All right. We normally don't go into products very often, but I'm really intrigued by how you came to the idea to, make a closed deck Subaru block, and then obviously the next step to that is to go into the billet side of things. So kind of give us an idea, what made you want to you're using inserts, and then is it welding them in there, I'm guessing, or is it just pressed in there?
It's an interesting process. We do use inserts. We actually machine the inserts to start with. We actually machine those inserts from a ground cast material rather than a billet, like a 6061. Okay. And the reason that we've chosen to do that is because the factory case is a cast case, and for expansion and contraction characteristics, and we wanted a material that was very similar to the stock case. Okay. So what we do is we machine the inserts. We actually machine the factory case to create kind of a datum or a known size and shape. And then we actually heat the block up, and we actually put the inserts inside of liquid nitrogen and freeze them down to about 376 below zero. And we shrink the inserts into the block. So it's neither pressed nor welded. They're kind of just shrunk in place. Okay. And then once they're in place, we put the case back into our CNC machine and machine it for all the different coolant passages and different options that people choose.
Interesting.
Yep. And, I actually have kind of taken that under my wing. I originally, when we started doing the closed deck process about a year and a half ago, I was told by my engineer that that best case scenario, we could get about 2, maybe 3 closed decks done a day. And just kind of doing the math on what we were selling at the time, that wasn't going to cut it. And again, we didn't have space for another machine. So I kind of made it my personal, my goal to improve that process. And we've improved that quite a bit. We can do almost 3 times that now. And so, but that's kind of how we, like everything else, all the other parts that we make, we concentrate on problem solving. Mm-hmm. If you can identify a problem and come up with a solution, and make a part that is affordable and, that works basically, you'll sell 1 million of them. I mean, we don't go out and really try to kind of promote our stuff that often because it really kind of sells itself.
Yeah.
And that's really what the closed deck was. The factory cases have a known problem, and we've come up with a solution that works really well, and we've been able to do it in a way that we can turn around, no matter how crazy or wild of a short block you choose, we can usually turn them around about 3 weeks.
Wow. Okay. And you guys are selling them as case halves by themselves, also assembled, and I'm sure probably even as a long block. Are you doing everything?
We are. We actually, I was kind of right place, the right time about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. And a good friend of mine, Jim Justice, who used to run Justice Race Engines, was also known as Darton East. That was the installer for Darton sleeves here on the East Coast, made the decision to close his business. And, like I said, kind of right place, the right time. I sat down with Jim and we discussed some ideas and some details and ended up bringing him on staff. And he actually runs our engine department now. Oh, wow. Okay. And so we do all the machining in-house. We have a Sun and SV10 hone and a Surrey seat and guide machine and a Rottler VR7 and all this different equipment to basically do the machining and the assembly in-house. And that's really what allows us to kind of have those short lead times that we have.
Awesome. And then the billet blocker, you worked with Willow on that one. Are you manufacturing it in your facility, or do they manufacture it with you?
No, they'll be manufacturing it. They actually make it on the same exact equipment we have here. Most of the basic work is done on a Haas VF3 or VF4, and then the detail work, 5-axis work, is done on a UMC 750, which we actually have both pieces of equipment here, but we just don't have the know-how. We're not billet block experts. Uh-huh. While I can offer some input and experience, that I've had in the past and make suggestions, it's not our forte. And we also don't have the spindle time. Our machines pretty much run all day.
Yeah, I was going to say the people who don't realize why they are so expensive is because they take so long to make. It's not that the hunk of aluminum is expensive and it's not cheap, but when you sit on a machine for 20 hours, I mean, that's where the cost comes in. So
absolutely. And especially when you're working with, for argument's sake, a $250,000 machine and probably another, $150,000 or $200,000 of tooling. It gets, you've got a lot invested, obviously, to make something work.
Right, and with the manufacturing time so long, you can't mess up, because if you do, you just wasted. There's a huge room for error on there, so you don't want to. With small parts, if you mess one of them up, you can stop and make another one. When you're doing
Absolutely.
One part, you can't mess it up. So, okay, so I want to take a second here and talk with our sponsors. We all know owning a shop is difficult, so we created My Shop Assist to help you manage the various jobs. Whether you run a machine shop, a performance tuning shop, build off-road trucks, or even do powder coating, My Shop Assist can help you. It is completely online and will help you schedule the jobs, log time on each task, track parts orders, and take pictures of the work. You can even export your jobs from My Shop Assist into QuickBooks as invoices. So if you're interested to improve operations at your shop, check out myshopassist.com to start your 30-day free trial. Moving on here, I wanted to talk about IAG, and so kind of fill us in some details about the business. So you obviously said you own the building. Have you been in the same building the whole time?
We have, yes.
And how big is it?
Well, it's kind of broken up, but altogether it's about 24,000 square feet.
Okay, so it's pretty big then, huh? Or I should say very big.
Yeah, it's not big enough. We originally started with about 18,000 or 17,000, and eventually added on a little bit. Kind of enclosed our loading dock initially, Then we enclosed an outdoor structure that we used to call our barn, which really had used parts in it. Enclosed that, added about another 5,000 square feet. And then a few years ago, we added an upstairs in one part of our shop. That's kind of turned into our engineering, our production area, and a couple of offices. And to be honest with you, we're busting out the seams. We just don't have enough space. We actually took out a lift. We've had 6 lifts in the shop in the past, and we actually removed a lift to add 2 more CNC machines.
Okay, you said that you have departments here, and we kind of talked about this before we started the interview as well. But so you have do you still do the dealership stuff, or is that gone?
We sell cars a little bit, but it's a very, very small part of our business.
Okay, and you said you do body work. You had a body side of the things for, obviously, I'm guessing, to service the cars that you were selling. Is that kind of what am I right?
That's how it initially started, but we, like any other body shop, kind of realized that the only way you're going to be successful is by doing insurance work. So we've actually we started back in 2011 or so, working with insurance company and doing general collision.
Okay.
We do, put some custom stuff through there, but for the most part, it's a general collision body shop, and it gets fed really from our customer base, our Subaru customer base from the performance business. We've never had to advertise or go out and seek the work.
Okay.
The customers that, that know basically that we have a good reputation doing the performance stuff, trust us to do the collision stuff as well.
Gotcha. And I'm guessing word of mouth referrals from those guys to keep that business going, huh?
Absolutely.
So then you have the mechanic shop, which is going to be your installs and repair and maintenance stuff, fixing the cars that you're selling, right?
Yes, correct.
And then you have machining, which is manufacturing parts, and you have the engine machining. Correct.
Yeah, two separate departments. We treat the CNC department and engineering department kind of as one, and then the automotive machine shop and engine building is kind of a separate department.
Okay. And then you also said you even do a little bit of window tinting, and do you still do like stereo stuff, or is that long gone?
No, I haven't actually. I wouldn't know the first thing about a stereo system or install these days. It's been probably at least 15 years since I've even installed my own radio. So.
Okay, so you have a little bit of everything, and all this is kind of like you're integrating all these little pieces that can help run the business without having to seek outside help, right? That was the goal of a lot of these, right?
Absolutely. What we kind of realized, the only way you can control lead times and quality is by kind of taking it under your own wing. We used to sub some machining out and would have just deadlines that were missed and parts that would come back and weren't really well machined or didn't fit. We would send out our machine work for the automotive side of the business and get stuff back, and the boards weren't straight and round, and just every problem you can imagine under the sun. And the same thing really with the body stuff. And so the theme has always kind of been that when a vendor or somebody that we do business with kind of fall short, we reassess things and decide, hey, can we handle doing this on our own? And like anything, if we can't do it better, I'm not going to do it. If you can't be the leader in your niche, don't even bother taking the risk. I mean, there's no sense in half-stepping and trying to kind of not do things 100%.
Okay. Have you ever written a formal business plan?
No. I've thought about it. I've sat down a couple of times to try to do it and kind of has started. And to be honest with you, it's just it's just not my thing. I was never really that great in school, and I could sit down and tell you what my plans are and what I want to do and what my vision is, but kind of putting that on paper has really been tough for me.
Okay. But having a vision is important, so you know the direction that you're wanting to go.
Absolutely.
Okay. And how many employees do you have?
I think we just broke 30, actually.
Okay, so a whole bunch of them in there, and I'm guessing they're spread pretty evenly about the departments, or do you have one that is kind of taken? I would guess that your machining is probably becoming a majority of the business, but I'm just guessing. So.
It's pretty evenly spread. We've got, let me think about this. We've got three guys in our sales department. One guy that handles just wholesale sales. We've got 4 mechanical techs in the shop. We have 4 guys that kind of handle the body shop business. 3 guys in the engine machining department. 2 guys that are building engines. 2 guys that are in purchasing and shipping. 2 people that are doing web order processing, and administrative kind of tasks, 4 people in the CNC department, 2 guys in product assembly and production. We've got a shop assistant, a window tinter, and then kind of my right-hand man, my operations manager.
Okay. And that's Rick, I'm guessing, right? Is he?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so do you find it difficult to manage all these people, or like how do you keep them all on task?
It's tough. Honestly, having Rick, on my side is invaluable. I need to work on some positive reinforcement and kind of learning how to tell guys when they're doing a really good job. Like I said earlier, we really do have a great crew, and I don't tell them that enough. Our industry is tough. A lot of times it'll mean late hours or, being at the racetrack on the weekends when they'd like to be with their family. But having Rick sort of oversees things while I'm in the back dealing with the CNC department and the CNC machines and kind of being the creative mind behind the products. And it's really nice to have somebody that you trust, and that, if I need to step away from the business, whether it be to visit other wholesalers or to go out and buy a piece of equipment, I can always trust that Rick is kind of going to run things and handle things. We have started to work on kind of putting a department head at the top of each department, so that instead of me having to micromanage each department, I can kind of just go to the department head and get updates and kind of express my concerns or give him feedback.
That's
and then
what I was just going to ask.
Trickles that down, yeah.
Okay, and so you already are doing that, or do you just does Rick kind of just run around and check on them all currently?
No, we are doing that. We have a meeting every morning.
Okay.
Probably the department that requires the most sort of hand-holding is the engine building department, because, as I'd mentioned earlier, we ship about 5 engines out a day. And so, knowing which 5 engines are going to go and which engines are coming up next and which wholesalers are hot for what, and, keeping our lead times down under 3 weeks is requires a lot of kind of hand-holding. And so every morning, myself and Rick and Jim Justice meet and go over what the tasks are for that day and kind of what the tasks are for the next couple of days.
Okay. So your focus is really, your personal focus is really spent in the machining area and engine assembly area, really is what you're focusing on to make sure, because I'm guessing dealing with, like if you have dealers for your products, making sure that they get the product to sell is critical, right? Because if they can't get the product when they need it, then it makes it looks bad on you and them, right?
Absolutely. And honestly, that's how some of our best products have been developed. We used to buy, parts from other people, and when they would fall short and they would miss deadlines, or they would ship a product or ship an order incomplete, and there's that kind of old adage, a nickel holding up a dollar. Our business used to rely on getting this project work done to keep things going and keep cash flow kind of where it needed to be. And if you're waiting on a $300 air oil separator to finish a $10,000 or $11,000 job, that's pretty counterproductive. Mm-hmm. And so that's where some of our best products have come from, is the need in the industry to make sure that that we can have the parts we need to get the jobs done quickly enough. And I recognize that other shops are just like we are, and they rely on us to make sure that we get the parts to them in the time that we told them that we would. It drives me crazy if we're ever out of stock on something. We had a machine go down. I used to sub our TGV deletes out to a friend of mine, and his machine went down. And in a matter of about 14 days, we ended up with back orders that were in excess of 100 pieces. And I had to scramble, and I literally got in my rig, and I drove up to Massachusetts, and I bought a machine and hauled it back and had it installed within a matter of about a week. And I spent the first about 10 days living here at the shop. Kind of embarrassing to say, but we have a bedroom here as well, and I literally stayed here and showered here and stayed until we got those back orders handled. And you have to do what you have to do. It was driving me crazy that there were vendors that didn't have parts in their hands, and that was holding up their jobs. And it just, the ripple effects were were pretty crazy, and I didn't like that, and I couldn't sleep at night if we were backordered on a part anyway. So
yeah, I remember seeing a bunch of Facebook pictures, and it was for like quite a while with you. Where it must have been the 10 days that you were living there, essentially, where you were just like nothing but sitting at the machine, and it was pretty funny. So
yeah, there's kind of a joke. It was we call the machine the baby because every 5.5 hours it had to be fed. So I'd feed the machine, and then I'd go up to the bedroom and I'd lay down. And of course, the first 3 or 4 days, you have a new piece of equipment. You're listening to every little chirp and every little noise, and making sure that the tools are doing what they're supposed to do, and the coolant level is right, and all that kind of stuff. And so you don't sleep for the first about 2.5 or so hours, and then I finally would fall asleep about 3 hours later, and then within an hour and a half or 2 hours, I had to be back up again, feeding the machine again. So it was an interesting 2 weeks.
And people need to realize you don't just go and buy a machine and be up and running in, within a couple of days without having a lot of experience doing this machining.
Pretty much. There's definitely a learning curve there. And, for me, again, I'm not a machinist. I never took any formal training or schooling. I actually stood behind one of my engineers about a year ago and kind of watched over his shoulder. He had put his notice in. He was moving on to a different job in a different industry. And I kind of knew that I didn't have a choice but to learn it. And so I kind of stood over his shoulder and watched what he was doing and asked a lot of questions and kind of picked it up pretty quickly. And within a matter of weeks, I was kind of running the machines and running the department, and we've done pretty okay at it. I mean, I'm definitely not. I'm not a machinist, and I still have a lot to learn. But I'm able to get through and get by, and the parts come out well, and we meet our deadlines. So
okay. You keep saying that you have a dealer network. Can you kind of explain to us like how you started going from just straight retail to working through dealers, and what do you look for in a dealer to resell your products?
Probably the most important thing is that we will only deal with somebody who is brick and mortar. There's been this kind of shift in the industry, where customers buy based on price more than anything. And a lot of these guys that are working out of their house or working out of their basement, are not working out of a commercial location. The only thing they really have to bring to the table is a lower price. And it was really important to us to not devalue our brand. We kind of understood what our products were worth. And the important thing for us was working with somebody who kind of aligns with those same ideas. Mm-hmm. And so we look for, a dealer that obviously is brick and mortar for one. We like most of our dealers to be install facilities. It's not a requirement, but it is something that we do like to see. And any of our kind of higher level dealers, I do try to actually do shop visits. Every month or so, I'll try to get out, get away from the shop for 3 or 4 days and go visit our dealers. Okay. And kind of hear from them what we can do to improve things and how we can kind of make their job easier. And we like to get product ideas that way as well. Kind of hear from them what problems they're dealing with and how we can help solve them. Okay.
Do you have buy-ins, or do people just apply and you approve them based off they're meeting your requirements or not?
We do have buy-ins. Our business has grown quite a bit in the last year, and that's kind of forced us to revisit the way we used to do things. We actually used to have three pricing tiers, or three buy-in requirements, and our bronze buy-in requirement was actually really low. And what we realized is that everybody under the sun, would want to call and just buy the small amount and get the smaller discount. And we ended up with this list of about 130 dealers pretty quickly. And we kind of have since reeled that in and raised our requirements to kind of control how many different people we're dealing with. Okay. And there's still some area for, room for improvement there. We definitely need to kind of revisit that a little bit. We do think it's important for people to, to make money, but, we would rather deal with maybe less dealers and kind of support them really well and have them kind of filter out to some of the smaller dealers.
Gotcha.
I don't know that we'll ever go to a big company like Turn 14 or Motivicity just because of concerns in kind of controlling the brand. But that's kind of what our next goals are in the wholesale.
And engines are a difficult one to support anyway, so you got to make sure that the people installing it know what they're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, our bronze pricing tier on engines we basically have set it up so that it's so unattractive that if you're a bronze dealer, you don't buy our engines. So,
All right.
It's just easier that way.
Okay. And have you had to do any advertising or marketing? It sounds like everything has just been word of mouth and growth by doing good work, right?
Pretty much. I mean, that and social media. Facebook has been invaluable. Instagram. I've actually started, as odd as it sounds, I've actually started using Snapchat as well, and I'll actually snap different things that are going on in the shop throughout the course of the day. Just leveraging those different social media avenues, and that's really been what's helped us grow.
What about the cars you're building? I mean, you obviously, when you build a billet block, you got to be going really fast to need it, for one, and then two, if it's not going fast, you're not going to sell them, right?
Absolutely. That old adage, win on Sunday and sell on Monday, really does hold true. Every time we go out to the track and we whether we set a personal best or we set another record, our phones and emails and Facebook messages are just off the chain on Monday.
And with that billet block, have you raced it yet?
No, actually, the first one that we're going to be using here in the States, we'll be going in a car, and hopefully we'll be debuting that on September 11th at the inaugural Subaru Nationals in Byron, Illinois.
Okay.
Our closed deck block, as I mentioned before, we've made just shy of about 1,250 wheel with it. We haven't really found the limits of that.
Okay.
So we'll have a couple of cars with that and hopefully 1 to 2 cars with a billet block next month. So we'll see what happens.
And when I opened up, I kind of said that, you guys have really been innovating and really taking this industry by storm. And the reason I say that is because Subarus are notorious for being extremely unreliable and very weak. And this is just my perspective coming from an Evo side of things. But to see the numbers that you guys have been putting down lately is really astonishing. And it shows that with proper engineering and manufacturing processes, you can actually make a product that can do exceptionally well, huh?
Not a question. It's a lot like baking a cake. If you can figure out the recipe, you'll have a perfect cake every time. As long as you don't deviate from that. Mm-hmm. And when we do deviate, we deviate on our own cars and kind of test things. And if they don't work, we chalk it up as a learning lesson and we kind of revisit it. But we really have come up with a recipe that works very well. And I'm really proud of our team for that.
All right. Well, how many hours a week do you think you're working?
Well, I guess up until recently, I probably have been working about 80 to 85 hours a week. More recently, I've been able to kind of take a little bit of a step back, and I'm probably working 65 to 70 hours a week, I'd say. Okay, so it's still quite a bit, but it's not ridiculously crazy, huh? No, yeah, I mean when I need to, I'm here. like the 2 weeks almost 2 weeks that I spent here doing nothing but TGVs. Before races, we definitely put in some time. But yeah, I'm trying to kind of work on that work-life balance for sure. Okay. You said you had a family. Has that affected your schedule at all? It hasn't. I've got 3 girls at home, but I'm lucky. My wife kind of handles things at home, and she does a really good job at that. And, we've been together for a very, very long time. So she knew what she was getting into. She knew that I was going to work a lot of hours and that my business really is my passion. And so she's very, very understanding. Okay. And it sounds like a lot of your time is spent working in the shop, but you also do devote time to managing the business. It's not just like making sure the machines are running. You're also like making sure people are doing things properly and the direction the business needs to go. So you are spending time managing that part of it, right? Absolutely, yeah. You have to work on the business just as much as you do in the business. And I try to spend maybe 8 or 9 hours a day at the machine and maybe another couple of few hours working on the business itself. Do you feel the pay justifies the time spent? It's a very slow answer, huh? Yeah, that's one I've got to think about. I mean, I love what I do, and I get up every morning, and I don't feel like I'm coming to work. I really can't wait to get here and kind of work on things, and that really is kind of my, the way that I'm rewarded, I feel like.
Okay.
More recently, there's no question that financially things are easier and better than they have been in the past. But I feel like that's really been from the hard work. So maybe in a couple of years, the pay will justify the hard work. But
at the very least, you own the property and you own a bunch of money in machines, or you own some of them and you're leasing some of them.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So at the very worst, if you ever decide to call it quits, you have some money to work from, I guess. So
yeah, I'll be okay.
Value in the business. Okay. All right. And what are the primary tools you're using for managing the business? I remember talking to Rick, and he said something about a fishbowl app or something. But tell us kind of how you're managing the company.
Yeah, so we use a few different softwares. Fishbowl is kind of our inventory and billing software that integrates with QuickBooks, and then we also use a appointment scheduler, which is a lot like a doctor's office appointment book. And then we have a time clock where we kind of punch in and out on the time clock to kind of manage or track, do job tracking. There's no question that we are interested in looking for something better than that.
So how are you tracking all the engines you're doing? Is that manufacturing software or anything for that, or is that still part of your appointment scheduler?
Yeah, Fishbowl actually has a manufacturing module built into it where you can actually have a bill of materials, and it's a pretty powerful software. It's not designed for the automotive industry, but it is a pretty powerful software.
Okay, with it being not designed for the automotive industry, do you struggle with trying to adapt it, or is it something that is pretty easy to use?
No, not a question. We definitely struggle with it. If I had maybe another 5 to 10 hours a day, I would maybe consult with somebody and ask for software to be built for us that kind of is tailored for our business. I think that the industry definitely could use some better software that kind of integrates all the different aspects of what we do.
Yeah, and you guys are using QuickBooks, you said. Do you break it down with your different departments? Are you using like classes or anything to know which areas of the business are profitable and which ones are not?
Not in QuickBooks, we're not, no. And that's definitely somewhere we could improve to kind of know where we're making money.
Okay, so you just have a general idea of which ones are working and which ones are not, like as far as the departments
Correct.
are concerned. Okay, so I wanted to get some more information about yourself here, but I want to pause for another sponsor. The goal of Do It for a Living is to give you insight to how others have become successful in this industry. Another thing we created to help with this is our Essentials of Operating a Shop seminar. This new class from EFI University is a one-day management seminar to help aftermarket automotive shop owners operate their business more efficiently. We cover various topics including employee management, accounting, marketing, purchasing capital equipment, and many more. We're holding our next class in Los Angeles, California on October 15th, followed by Indianapolis, Indiana at the PRI show on December 7th. For more information, go to EFI101.com and check out the Essentials of Operating a Shop page. And be sure to use coupon code DIFAL for $50 off when you sign up. Okay, so moving on here, what's some things you struggle with in business and how do you deal with it?
Finding good people. That's really, really tough. I feel like, I get up every day and I can't wait to get here. And to me, it's a career-minded thing. It's not really a job. And finding people that kind of have those same ideals is difficult. Managing people is difficult. Working with 30 different personalities is challenging at times. That's probably the thing that I struggle with the most. And I could definitely work on giving positive reinforcement, no question.
Okay, so most of it's related to employees, which a lot of people echo, including myself. Do you have a one-year plan for yourself in the business?
That's a tough one. If you had asked me a year ago what my one-year plan was, what our goals were, we met those about 6 months in. So really, I haven't had time to really breathe or think about what our one-year plan would be from here on out. We actually had some goals that were 3-year goals, and we've exceeded those. So
all within a year?
Yeah, all within a year. And so I really, it's tough. It's tough to really think that far ahead, but really trying to get away from the shop maybe once a month. And those times that I'm kind of out doing other shop visits, that you do try to spend some time in the car kind of thinking about what our next, 1 to 2 years kind of has in store for us. Our biggest, sort of goal is we need to move. We really just don't have enough space here.
Okay.
So that's kind of what our next year I hope holds for us.
Okay, so I was just going to say what the 5-year plan is for yourself in the business, and I'm guessing you better be in a new building, huh?
Oh, for sure, yeah. We really won't have much of a choice. It's become challenging for sure. We're robbing Peter to pay Paul all the time, and we have machines that are tucked into corners because we don't have space for them, and all of our raw materials right now sit outside because we don't have racking inside to be able to store them, and it's become challenging for sure.
And do you think you'll be buying into the property, or you just can you expand more on the lot you're on, or do you need a new property for it?
No, unfortunately, we there's some challenges, and I'm sure you've heard this from other guests dealing with governments, local bureaucracies is definitely challenging.
Mm-hmm.
We tried about 6 years ago to expand. We wanted to build another 11,000 square feet, and we were kind of stonewalled. And we've spent the last kind of, 5 to 6 years kind of, stealing space from, creating space where there really wasn't space. We went up in our building, added another 2,000 square feet upstairs, and kind of went out as much as we could, as much as they would allow us.
Okay.
But we definitely are looking to move and to buy another building. I would hate the idea of paying somebody rent, to be honest.
Okay. And I guess this is back to kind of like your building that you're in there now, but the interview with Jeff Racer at Full Race, he kind of described organizing his shop and stations and making the workflow through the building like work. Is that something you guys do there, especially with such a limited space? Do you have to like really optimize it, or do you just kind of cram it all in there and hope it works?
That's a really, really interesting question, a really great question, actually. We try to do the best with what we have, but the reality is we're incredibly inefficient when it comes to that kind of stuff. We actually have our engine machining department is in one back left corner of the building, and our engine building department is in the front right corner of the building. And the guys are constantly traveling between those two areas. Mm-hmm. And then we have an area where we clean, where everything gets kind of cleaned up, and that's in another corner of the building. And so it really is a very inefficient setup, and that's one of the things that one of the reasons why I can't wait to find another piece of property and kind of build it from scratch the way that we want to.
Okay.
There's no question that there's lost time in the way that we do things in the the process, basically, because of working with a building that kind of is just a tinker toy, for lack of a better way of explaining it. We've added on everywhere we can add on, and stolen space everywhere we can steal space from. All of our parts are actually assembled and boxed upstairs on the second floor, and then they have to be brought down from upstairs down to our shipping dock to even leave. So it's just, there are many areas of the business that could improve if we were in a better building.
Have you considered dropping departments? I mean, do you need a body shop if your manufacturing is growing like as fast as it is?
That's an excellent question and a tough one to answer. And this is something that Rick and I talk about all the time, and there's no question that there are days that parts of the business are challenging, and the stress that comes with them definitely overweighs what seems to be the positives. So that's definitely something we've talked about.
Okay.
I'd say the jury is still out. How about that?
At the very least, you have lots of different sources of revenue. So if any of one of them slows down, you have so many of them that you can keep the ship going, huh?
Not a question. That's actually worked really well for us.
Okay. We like to take action on Do It for a Living. Can you suggest an action item our listeners can use to improve their situation?
I would really kind of two things. I would say don't get complacent. Once you get comfortable and get complacent, you're not going to continue to move forward. And I see a lot of shop owners do that. And I would say probably the most important thing is don't focus on your competition. If you worry about your competition and you stop focusing on the things that are going to be important to kind of improve your business, you'll not only lose sight of your own business or your goals, but all this wasted time and energy is spent on things that are just counterproductive.
Okay.
And I'd also say don't do anything unless you can do it better than your competition. If you're not going to go out and set the bar higher, don't waste your time.
Okay. That's excellent advice. And have you been following any of the Do It for a Living podcasts or the Facebook group, and have you taken anything from them for your own benefit?
Yeah, I have. They've actually been really informative. I've listened to maybe 6 or 7 of them at this point, and I definitely want to sit down and I'm kind of addicted now, actually. I kind of went on a binge and listened to about 5 in a row, and I really need to just make some time. I may actually put my headphones in while I'm running the CNC machine and just listen to them for the next couple of weeks, to be honest.
Cool. Okay, moving on to the quick answer questions here. So these are just something, whatever pops in your mind, just kind of say it. What's a game-changing product you've seen in the last year?
I would say 3D printers, scanners, fair arm, those kind of things. The ability to kind of go from a conception or a concept all the way to a working prototype in a matter of a day or two. That's really kind of revolutionized the industry. And it used to be that we would spend days. We'd start with a design scratched on a napkin and go from that to a working prototype. It would take months and months. And then, when that didn't work, you had to go back to the drawing board and start the process kind of all over again. And with things like fair arms and 3D printers, really able to come to market with a product in a matter of about 2 weeks.
Sounds like you brought that in-house.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we put a fair arm in about 2 years ago, and we've been using a small desktop 3D printer. I actually bought a Z-Corp printer about 2 years ago and spent more time working on it than we really did getting parts out of it, and have just gone to kind of like a much smaller, Johnny Homeowner version. But it gets the job done, and we may revisit that soon. But the ability to kind of scan something, manipulate it in software like SolidWorks or eventually into Mastercam, and then prior to even Mastercam, printing out a 3D prototype, working prototype and testing it is key. I mean, it's been invaluable.
Okay, and you just sound like you answered a couple of the next question. Is what software are you guys using daily?
We use SolidWorks. We use Mastercam. We had mentioned Fishbowl for our billing, invoicing and inventory management.
Well, the next question is, what's your favorite app?
Yeah, Facebook, I'd say, is probably my favorite app. I stand at the CNC machine and kind of use that to communicate with both customers and vendors. We actually also communicate internally. As strange as it sounds with Facebook, we actually have an internal Facebook group that we send messages and pictures and kind of give different staff members tasks and updates and stuff like that through Facebook.
Oh, awesome. You should check out, there's an app called Slack.
Yeah, we actually just started using that.
I think you like that one.
I have not myself, but
Okay.
I know that that my guys have actually started using that. Keith, who we hired, introduced us to Slack a few weeks ago, and we're just kind of getting started with that.
Yeah, that's a good one. And what's your favorite shop tool?
I'd have to say my VF4SS, which is the machine that I do all of the closed deck blocks in. I mean, I've got to have a kind of a special relationship with that thing. I go back and just kind of put my head down, and she has not done me wrong.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been a
great
tool.
That's a Haas machine, is that right?
That is a Haas machine, yes.
Okay. Yeah. And what kind of car are you driving right now?
I drive a 2015 Audi S6.
Oh, okay. So not driving a Subaru, huh?
No, I drove Subarus for the last 8 or 9 years, and kind of as I've gotten older, I've started to appreciate some of the more refined things in life.
All right.
The Subarus are great, but they're also just kind of shitty enough where they keep us busy. So I've learned to maybe drive something else that's shitty. So.
All right. Okay. And where do you see the future of automotive performance going?
I have concerns about the future. With the EPA and things that have happened in the last year with Volkswagen, and seen some of the things that have happened with some of the aftermarket businesses. But to be honest with you, I think as long as there are going to be cars and things on 4 wheels, that are powered, people are not going to stop, doing performance work. I think it's going to be challenging for sure, and I think the industry will change a lot over the course of the next 10 years. And there's no question it's changed a lot in the last 10 years. But I think the industry's the future is definitely bright. I don't have concerns that the industry is going to die. I just think that it's going to be challenging.
And that gets back into you having like a well-rounded, multiple sources of revenue. Where if the performance thing does start slowing down, you still are rebuilding engines. That's never going to go away.
No, yeah, I agree. Yep.
How do we connect with you and your company?
Probably the best way is through email. You can reach us at sales@iagperformance.com. You can always reach us on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/IAG Performance. Or you can pick up the telephone, 410-840-3555.
All right, JJ, I really appreciate you taking some time to talk with us. I know your schedule is filled and you're working a lot, so this is it's a treat for us to be able to hear from you and how successful you've been.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been really fun.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website, doitforaliving.net. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe.